So let's talk about something that is very likely to screw up your actual life. Healthcare. Okay. Because while everyone's been busy chasing the outrage of the day, whether it be, Donald Trump saying something stupid, which happens pretty much every day, House Republicans are quietly laying the groundwork to allow for your insurance premiums to go sky high. So let's talk about what actually happened here, okay? And specifically, what the Democratic Party, the establishment, allowed to happen. Because this is a perfect case study in how the establishment negotiates away their leverage and your benefits before Republicans even ask. So here's the situation. Millions of Americans right now are on the ACA, the enhanced subsidies, right? They're able to afford that insurance because of these subsidies. Money. That's money that helps them afford their premiums. Without that, premiums would be unaffordable. Okay? Especially for lower income folks. Those subsidies mean the difference between having health insurance coverage and going without. We're talking, again, millions of people. Okay? So those subsidies expire on December 31st, 2025. Weeks away. So what does Congress do? Well, Republicans just made it crystal clear. They have no interest in extending these subsidies whatsoever. That's it. Speaker Mike Johnson literally told Trump White House officials that most of the Republicans in the House have little to no interest in extending those subsidies at all. Not some interest, not we're going to negotiate and see where we go. No. Little to no interest at all. And here's the other thing. Trump's people, yes, did they float a alternative, a compromise? Kind of. I mean, what it would do is screw people over. It would cap eligibility at 700% of the federal poverty level and require minimum premium payments. Wait a minute. That sounds pretty technical, but let me just kind of lay it out bare and what it actually means. It basically ends the $0 plans for low-income Americans, the people who depend on these subsidies the most. Now, Republicans aren't just saying we're not interested in extending them. They're also saying, why don't we just make it worse for poor people while we're at it? I see what the plan is, okay? Just screwing over poor people. Wow. Now, you'd think that the Democratic Party would treat this like a red line and say, actually, you know what? Healthcare, we believe it's a human right. It's one of the core things that the Democratic Party claims to care about, right? I mean, it's in their messaging. Okay, it's in their platform. Oh, we're going to protect healthcare. We're going to protect the ACA. We're going to fight for it, right? But when it came time to vote on the shutdown deal that was a couple of weeks ago, which was supposed to include protections for the ACA subsidies, that's why they shut down the government in the first place, what happened? Fail. That's what happened. 8 Democrats and 1 independent voted with Republicans to advance a deal without any guarantees of an ACA subsidy extension. No guarantee at all. It was 60-40, right? Those 8 votes, they mattered because if they hadn't crossed over, Republicans would not have been able to reopen the government. These 8 could have blocked this, but they didn't. Now, some of the Democrats, of course, have tried to explain themselves, especially after the backlash, which is threatening even Chuck Schumer's job, okay? So now they say, well, look, the shutdown deal, it included some good stuff, right? Obviously, you had to fund the government and through January, and, it's got Veterans Affairs funding and reinstates the laid-off federal workers, and so now they're going to have a paycheck. It also maybe reimburses states for some of the shutdown costs. Okay, fine, those are good, whatever. It's not like I wanted the government shut down anyway. No, most of us didn't. It's just that we understand how leverage works, and apparently they don't. And so the problem is you don't trade away healthcare, your leverage, when you're supposed to be the party that fights for people's healthcare. That's it. And so this is the Democratic establishment playbook. Republicans will demand something cruel and regressive. Democrats say, well, okay, we'll negotiate. We have to. Democrats then trade away something important to maybe get something else of lesser value. And then they tell their base, well, what else could we do? We didn't have the leverage. But you did. And you got rid of it. And that's the reality. And look, the people who get screwed over the most, they get left holding the bag. Okay? And so here's what happens next, okay? So Congress in January going to come back after the holiday because they get more holidays than any other body that I've ever seen. I mean, imagine if workers got to work as much as Congress does, or I should say as little as Congress does. Okay? Oh my God. That would be amazing. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And so the Democrats who voted not to protect the people in the shutdown deal, the people who need this health care, they end up, when negotiations resume, if there even will be negotiations, they're going to be in a much, much weaker negotiating position. They're not going to have anything for the Republicans, to basically, they got nothing Republicans want, basically. That's the reality of the situation. Republicans now hold all the cards. That's it. Game over. Now Republicans can demand anything of the Democrats to possibly extend these subsidies. Abortion bans, I mean, killing the minimum wage. They could go out and demand anything, and knowing how this White House operates, knowing how the Republicans are operating, they probably will demand something insane because they don't care if the subsidies lapse. They don't care about people's health care. And then Republicans will say, when they put out a really, really terrible offer, they say, well, hey, you agreed to move forward without any subsidy protections. Ain't nothing you can do. Ha! Democrats walked into a trap. Clearly, and it was what we were warning was going to happen. But we were screaming at the Democrats, don't do it. Stay strong. Hold the frickin' line. Really, all you have to do is just not do anything. Just don't do anything. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but literally you win by not doing a damn thing. They couldn't even accomplish that. Their first instinct always was to roll over. Okay? And I want to be clear, too, on that. I'm not talking about all the Democrats. No, the Progressive Caucus was actually fighting. And they're saying, no, we're not going to vote for a shutdown deal that doesn't protect the ACA subsidies. But you had these 8 Democrats, centrist Democrats, the establishment, crossing over to say, actually, we are going to help Republicans. I don't know, maybe they have donors that prefer a weaker ACA. Maybe those same donors just really wanted the government open because they were losing money in the shutdown. I don't know their reasoning, and I don't really care. But I do know the outcome. The ACA subsidies are unprotected. They're not going to be extended. And let's be honest, what happens when they expire? Millions of people are going to lose their health care coverage. Premiums are going to skyrocket. People are going to go back to being uninsured. Emergency rooms are going to become the primary care system for poor people. Again, people are going to die from preventable diseases because they cannot afford treatment. This is not an abstract policy discussion. This is an example of real human suffering that is going to happen. And so here's what I need you all to understand. Republicans, I think we all know this, they're already openly hostile to people having health care. They want to kill the ACA. They want to make it worse. That is not a secret. That has been their stated position for quite some time. The Democratic Party is supposed to be an alternative to that. They're supposed to fight for this stuff. And when they vote to move forward on a deal that doesn't protect the healthcare subsidies, they're telling you something very, very important. that they are not willing to go to the mat to fight for you. Not really. Not really. Yeah, they'll make nice speeches about it. They'll put it in their platform as if that means anything. But when it comes down to time to actually fight, when it comes time to say, no, we're not going to move forward until healthcare is protected, just enough of them always will fold. Thanks to Chuck Schumer, by the way, who behind the scenes allowed for this to happen. You don't do this without the blessing of someone like Chuck Schumer. You don't do that. So, anyway, he allowed these 8 folks to negotiate away what leverage they had on a vague promise of a vote, which is probably not going to happen at all. So, what do we do about this? Well, you got to call your representatives, for one. Tell them the ACA subsidies are not negotiable. Tell them you expect them to fight for healthcare. Second, remember this in 2026. Remember which Democrats voted to move forward without subsidy protections, and vote accordingly in primaries. Third, actually support Progressive Caucus members who did fight for this, because they're really the only ones who seem to get it, okay? And fourth, understand what is happening here. This is a great example of the Democratic establishment showing you exactly who they are and who they're really fighting for. If this video helped you cut through the BS and see what is really happening, then smash that like button. Every single like pushes back against the right-wing propaganda machine. I can't do this work without your support. So please check out my Patreon. Link is in the description of this video. For a few bucks a month, you can help keep this channel independent from corporate BS. So hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's keep fighting for democracy and against fascism together.